Greetings and a very warm welcome to GlobalSBM Business Talk. Today, we are honored to welcome Mr. Alvaro as our guest speaker. Mr. Alvaro is from Spain, but he left Spain when he was with a concentration in finance. In terms of work experience, he has always been in the startup world and gathered experience from companies based in Spain and London. Mr. Alvaro researched and analyzed the global proptech industry and published a report at Fintech Global. And from there on, he has been working with Singular Factory, an online business development firm. Later, he came over to nubi.city, where he focuses on the finance and accounting side of the business. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Alvaro, and we are excited to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Prachu. All right, let me get right into it. Can I share my screen? That's okay?
Yes, you can. You are the co-host.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me know if you're seeing my screen. Yes, right? Yes. Perfecto. Okay. Thank you very, very much. And let's get right into it. So for today, I was thinking, today, there's this whole thing with the metaverse and the idea behind it, and it's become really, really popular with NFTs and so on. So I thought, in our company, we kind of, I'll get into it now, but we have a very, simplified version of the metaverse. So I thought it could be an interesting idea to kind of dive deeper into this subject and discuss it between all of us. So let's go for it. Okay. Okay. So yes. So how she just told us, how the host just told us, I am originally from Spain. I'm the oldest of 5 siblings. I'm a Real Madrid fan. So if any of you are like soccer and like Real Madrid, please let me know. And I studied at Boston University. The reason why I decided to come to Boston University was because even though I studied in Spain all of high school, I thought it was important for me to kind of differentiate myself from the rest of my colleagues. And I was a smart kid. I got good grades, but I wasn't the best. So I thought if there's any way I can make it so that when I go in the future into the real world, into the professional world, I can have something unique to offer to employers, then I think I have to take that opportunity. Thankfully, when I was little, from when I was 7 till I was 10 years old, I lived in Connecticut. So I had already experienced that American culture, and which is, in my opinion, it's very ambitious. It's very there's a lot of opportunity if you want to take it, and so there was certainly this want in my mind to come back here and study here and eventually try to work here. And so that's why I decided to go to Boston University. And during my time there, I think I learned a bunch of things, and I think those are kind of one of the main reasons why there's a big difference between the US and the Spanish educational system. Which I don't know how it is in Switzerland, but in Spain, basically what happens is you still live at home while you're in college, and in the United States, I left home when I was 17 to go to Boston, and you have to deal with everyday difficulties that you experience when you're older. So paying for taxes or making sure the light is off so that you don't have to pay extra for that month, etc., etc. Those are things that you don't really think about when you're living with your family, but so it really helps. At the end of the day, it's just experience. Once you've lived it, it's not really complicated. It's just getting used to it. And so leaving home at such an early age kind of helps you develop those skills and be able for real life. And I think in terms of academically, the main difference between the United States and I would say Europe in general, but I don't want to generalize, so I'm going to keep it with Spain. I think in the United States, there's a big emphasis on teamwork and group projects and the importance of being able to present, which when you go out into the real world, it ends up being one of the most important things, because every skill can be learned. But I think having that capacity to present yourself and present your company, and especially working with others, it's key. And in Spain, there's not such an emphasis on this at all. It's a lot of you sit down, you memorize a chapter of the book, and once you're done, you do an exam, you spit it all out, and you forget about it. So I think this is a very, very big difference. I think we're kind of stuck in a traditional ways in Spain, and I think in the United States it's much more developed in that sense, and I think that's it's helped me a lot, at least. And lastly, I think they do really well in the United States is that every summer, again, because they're trying to prepare you for the real world, they give you 3 months in the summer, which can seem like, oh, that's fantastic. It's 3 months of vacation. That's great. But the reason why they give you three months of summer is because they expect you to work during the summer, do some sort of internship, do something. And so that by the time that you leave the university, you've already had several years of experience in the world, in the business world. And kind of, again, giving you that advantage over other people that haven't done that. But anyway, so in terms of my professional experience, exactly, right, I've been working in startups since I started. My first professional experience was in Clicars, which is a online car seller in Spain. The company, when I was there, we were 40 people. Now they're 500 people in just 5 years, 5 to 6 years. Their revenue in 2021 was, I think, around 250 million. And when I was there, we were around 10 million. So, I mean, the growth has been astronomical, has been incredible. And I think like I said, all they do is it's an online car seller. So, but what they managed to do was something that I think I definitely learned there is the capacity to replicate a business model that's working in another country, in another nation, adjusting it to whatever obviously are the needs of your target market. In this case, it was Spain, but really kind of keeping the foundation of the idea behind it. And so Clicars is really, I don't know if you guys know it, but there's a bunch of companies here like CarMax or Carvana, which are basically doing the same thing. It's being able to buy a car online without actually having to physically see the car first. That was something that didn't exist in Spain, and it was crazy to think about. And with Clicars, they've managed to give people enough trust in them so that they would be willing to buy the car without even seeing it. But anyway, so that was a big takeaway for me from there was being able to replicate business models in your country that you take from somewhere else. It can work. It can certainly work, and it's a big differentiator. And then I worked in Fintech Global as well, the research and news firm in London. And there I learned there was a lot of analyzing data, but I think the main thing there was the way you present yourself and how you write is really, really important because obviously you don't know how to properly present it. It gives a bad impression of people, even if the information you're giving is facts and it's correct. People will not believe you, because at the end of the day, confidence and trust in people is almost 50% of people listening to you. So yes, and now give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. And in terms of after that, what happened is I work at Singular Factory, which, don't worry, it's combined with Nubi. Basically, what Singular Factory is we build internet businesses and empires. So we're an online development firm, but what makes us kind of unique is that the company, we set aside, imagine 5 developers, 5 engineers for a specific project, which any of you, imagine you guys have a business idea that requires some technological development. You come to us and you say, okay, I have this business idea. Can you help me with the technology part? So we help develop it, and if the project does well and it fully develops into a business, the engineers that helped with the project initially, they just stay on with the project, and they kind of leave Singular Factory and work on that project, which again, it's great because having the people that started the project continue throughout the whole life cycle of the company, it's very helpful. Some good examples of companies we've worked with, my boss is actually the CTO right now of CargoBot, which is a platform that connects shippers and carriers in the United States. And currently they made, I think it was around 20 million in revenue in 2021. So it's been a big success. Fuel, which is a company in Spain, and it's a credit card basically for your online expenses, which just got into Y Combinator, which is a huge accelerator here in the United States, one of the biggest ones. And what was very interesting about that is that when they got accepted into the program, we were trying to raise I think it was a seed round at the time for X valuation. And after they got into the program, the program leaders told them, wait for the 4 or 5 months that this project, that this accelerator takes place in. Because after you do the demo day, which is at the end of the project, every company does a presentation of their project and what they've done and what they're accomplishing, and then investors just attack. And so they said, wait until you finish the project, the program, the accelerator, because your valuation will go up by 5. And it's very interesting to think that it's the same exact business, but just having that backup of this huge accelerator in the United States it fully changes kind of the perception that we have of companies. And lastly, Sirit, which is a program that's meant to help collect debt. So it's trying to help debt collectors understand what is the best approach when you're going to talk to someone that owes you money so that they will pay you back. And it uses several probabilities. And that was actually where I started. When I started in Single Factory, that's where I started. And now I'm focused in Nubi, which is the gamified platform, which I will go more into later. But basically, again, that's the idea of a Single Factory. You have several projects, all under kind of the parent company, which is Single Factory, and the ones that go well, they switch into their own independent businesses. Okay, so now that's enough about myself. Let's go a little bit into really the metaverse, the idea of the metaverse and all that. So if you go into Wikipedia, because I know there's a lot of definitions, and obviously Wikipedia may not be the best one, but it's a general one that we all know. And so if you go there, the little definition that they say about the metaverse is it's a collective, shared virtual space that is created when the physical realm meets the virtual realm. And this includes virtual reality, augmented reality, and the internet. Okay, so the way it's kind of transforming the physical world into a virtual reality, an immersive reality. That's why we have the virtual reality in there, where we have our own unique avatar, and we're able to experience the world fully online without having to be, in the same room as someone else. That's kind of the idea behind it. And it's basically the next generation of the internet. It's a decentralized multiverse, and it's going to be led by an abundant and new generation of creators, which is what's coming up now. And I think you guys can all agree with me. I mean, more and more people are becoming, independent and wanting to develop new things. I think it's important to say that it's not a metaverse. It's not going to be one, in my opinion. It's kind of an extension of our current existence. So what I mean with that is, for example, when you're an assassin in Call of Duty, or you're a professional driver in Need for Speed, it's the idea of having an extension of ourselves in the virtual world. And in fact, with you could almost say Instagram is a kind of metaverse, in the sense that people are in many scenarios pretending to be someone else. They always say that nobody's prettier than their Facebook picture. But I know I'm kidding, but you get the idea of kind of having that community and being fully in another world, but being yourself within that world and representing yourself in a gamified form. So there's actually been a lot of examples of early metaverses. We have, I don't know if you guys ever played Habbo, but I used to play that game a lot, and it was basically that. Obviously, it's not an immersive experience. It will get there, but we're still not there. But basically, you go in, it's a huge community. You can do everything you want. You're represented by your own avatar, and you can go from going to eat at a random restaurant with random people to having a house full of gold to really whatever you want. And then another great example is Second Life, which it's, I think, even closer, because in this scenario it was 3D gamification, so it allowed it to be much more realistic. However, I think it was a little bit too early for their times, and I think the technological requirements didn't allow for a seamless experience. It was very slow at the beginning. But regardless, even though they were early, it was kind of the first warnings of that avatar community that could become. And even though they both have different monetization models, so it was just opening the world to what was to come. Okay. So even though those were very, very early on, I think it's slowly getting there. We're slowly getting to that kind of society where we accept this new reality. And there's a lot of data out there, and this one, for example, I think is very shocking. If you look here in this first graph, this one, you can see that 68% of Gen Zs consider them to be a gamer, and in comparison to 88%, sorry, of boomers. It's the change is incredible. And why is this important? It's very important because I think with the metaverse, there's definitely going to be kind of this little part of it being gamification, and the idea of making a gamified example, a gamified world. So it's very important for people to feel comfortable with games, with online games, and obviously if they consider themselves gamers, then that's going to be much easier for them to adapt to a new reality. And this second gap, I think it's even more crazy, and it's comparing people that feel themselves more online than offline. And if you look here in Gen Z, okay, which is the most recent and the upcoming generation, 45% of respondents said they feel themselves more online, in comparison to 40% feel themselves more offline. So people think of themselves more like they feel like they're more themselves on the internet, which is crazy because you're behind a computer, like behind the screen, you're not even there with the person. And still people feel like that's more of themselves than when they're offline with their family, with their friends in real life. So again, it's just this fully crazy shift in our mindsets, and how this change is really happening. This is the last two graphs on this, I promise. But another crazy stat. Let me just move this because I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay. So the number of people that are meeting their friends online or offline, this first graph, this is still, which is interesting, this is still more offline than online. So it's for Gen Z 64 to 36, and for millennials it's 61 to 39%. But still, it's interesting that more and more people are starting to meet with their friends online, and I think especially after COVID, where we really didn't have an option, I think it's allowed this change to be much quicker. And if we did the same graph now for 2022, I'm pretty sure this stat will be a little bit different. I think it will be almost 50-50. And yes, and last thing, about half the US consumers think that they're members of the community. And why is this important? Because like I was saying at the beginning, the metaverse is really going to be a community in which people, they basically, it's, well, the real life in the online, but it's based on community. It's based on the idea of people having the capacity to make friends, to almost be with, if they want to, with their family online, if they're in different places. And so it's very important that we have this idea of community behind us, and that we're able to create it with all the social media that's in today's world, and like Discord and so on. I think it's pretty established, but it's still good to know that 43% of Gen Z and 47% of Gen Z have more online communities that they have in-person communities, by in fact more than double. So, all right, and now a more recent example of the metaverse. And I know, maybe Fortnite, for those of you who don't recognize this image, Fortnite is not maybe perfect in terms of, it's definitely not, it's very specific for gamers, and it has really one focus, but there's certainly a lot of ticks that Fortnite ticks off for to be a metaverse. I mean, at the end of the day, players have their own avatars, they have their own virtual outfits, with wings and weapons. And what's crazy about it is that they have created friends. They have created online friends that they don't know in real life. I mean, my little brother Pablo, he's 12 years old. I hear him talking with a headset with people on Fortnite that he's never met in real life, and they're basically like they were best friends. And it's crazy because they don't care how they look like in real life, and they only care about the virtual extension. How their character in the game. And it's all about how they behave in that environment and the context in which they've met. So it's again, it might not be a perfect example of the metaverse, but certainly I think it's getting there. It's within the realms. This Fortnite, and I can think of a great example when they did virtual concert, and it was, I think it was millions of people attended, everyone with their own avatar, and it was kind of creating that community, and so on. So I think we started with Havo, we started with Second Line, and slowly we're getting more and more developed and quality examples of the metaverse. In terms of elements of the metaverse, this is going to be more technical than my initial definition, but basically here we have every little thing that kind of combined creates the metaverse. So there's things like the digital currency, which will be key, the marketplace, the non-fungible tokens, so the NFT, because I think this will be key mainly because if we're going to have virtual representations of ourselves, we need each of us to be unique in one way or another. So we need each of us to have like our own NFT, our own character avatar, where when other people see us, they can automatically know who we are. It's going to be, I think, one of the most important things. Obviously, the infrastructure, the device independent, the gaming part of it, which we were talking about before, how it's important that such large portion of the population consider themselves to be gamers, because there's definitely going to be some gaming aspect to the metaverse, and so it's important that people feel comfortable with that, and that transition isn't very complicated in terms. And then these assets, again, the idea of having that social media, that connection, that community behind it is also going to be key. And I think the combination of all these things will make the overall metaverse. So why now, right? Why is this the moment this is happening? Why not before, why not after? Well, even though today this is not the subject of today's talk, I think at the same time we're having the metaverse, there's also this whole thing with the Web3 idea, with cryptos, with NFTs, with decentralization, all these terms that are kind of going hand in hand with the metaverse. Like I said, for example, with NFTs, it's going to be key that each avatar at the end of the day has their own representation of that each one is really an NFT, that we're all unique and that no one can really replicate us exactly the same way. Web3, because that idea of having that community behind it, and the decentralization, where it's the users themselves that kind of control what they do in this metaverse, and so the growth of these terms and of what comes behind them, it's kind of going hand in hand with the metaverse. And I think what's important to mention is the metaverse is slowly kind of crossing the valley from only gamers starting to use it through the games I mentioned, to coming into more of a social and professional use. Again, I think we're still not there, but I think it's slowly getting there. And I think in terms of when should we kind of join this metaverse, I think there's no rush. And I think, again, there's time until it's fully immersive and everyone can kind of use it. But I think it should be in the moment where you feel that it's going to bring personal and professional value to your life. When that happens, I think it's the point in which it makes sense to join that world. Before then, there's no need, there's no, like the idea of FOMO and so on. I don't think it should matter. I think it's when it brings value to your life in one way or another, that's when it's the moment to join. Okay. So, how I mentioned that in Singular Factor, we have a lot of different projects. So I'm currently focused on Nubi, but we have another one called HoloFeast, like Microsoft HoloFeast, but it's not the same, but the idea. But basically, we are replicating maps in real time of different places. And with the glasses, you see these people here. They have, there's obviously these two people are completely different. One is in Miami, and the other one I think is in Canarias in the moment, which is an island in Spain. And how we're using this is basically when you put these glasses on, you're obviously in a shared space where you have like the 3D model here of the land, and it allows you to see what's going on in real time. So, for example, we have firefighters in Spain. They're actually using this to kind of help predict where a fire is going to start, and especially try to get there before it happens. We've also had it used for construction to prepare how something will look before it's actually done, and I kind of visualize it in an immersive example. Let's see. Okay, here you can have even more examples. This is going to be even easier to understand. So like this, for example, for the fire, to understand, what areas exactly it is where there's a higher chance of it happening, where it's the red area, or the green is where there's a lower chance of it happening. This is to like an image, literally you open it up in the moment. I don't know if you can tell here, but this is a hand. So you open your hand and the whole menu comes up and then you have a full list of options. So this is, you could put up an image, a real-time image of a specific location to see what's going on in that specific image. And then this is, for example, for the construction thing I was talking about, to imagine if you created, X building somewhere and how it would look and how would it impact that specific area, etc. So this is kind of the meetings in the metaverse. It's people coming together from different places, fully different places, but they're seeing exactly the same thing. They can see each other moving. Like I could be here in my room right now with the glasses on and I'm moving around my room, and you all the way in whatever you want to be in Switzerland, and you would see me moving around my room. That's how incredible it is. Once you put those glasses on, it's crazy. It's a different world. But anyway. So our approach. So like I said, the metaverse, where it's going to be, you have the combination of augmented reality and virtual reality and so on. I think it's going to come, but I think it's still not here. Especially one of the main issues I see with it still is the idea that it requires the hardware and it's expensive. And so I think that it's developed in a way that it allows all of us to be able to buy them and reach them. Then I think that's going to be a big block on the road. But anyway, so our approach with Nubi, which is a gamified version, it's a gamified virtual workplace and event space. And we like to think of it as a simplified metaverse, a kind of a version 1.0 for everyday use. And we actually developed it initially for internal use for Singular Factory because we were all remote. We have employees all over the world. We have people in South America, we have people in Spain, we have people in the United States. And so we were sick of Zoom, we were sick of Google Meet. Not because, it definitely did what it needed to do, which was allow us to communicate. But the issue was, it was very repetitive and it kind of limited us to be able to communicate during a period of time where we're connected to the call. So we tried doing a call for 24/7, all day. We had a call on. The issue with that was obviously the privacy issues, and again, it was very repetitive and almost intrusive sometimes. So we developed Nubi because we wanted to have a more gamified version of Zoom, almost like Zoom, but with a community behind. That's how we like to think about it, where we have a lot more context of what's going on. I'll go into the actual platform now so you guys can see it in real time. But basically, it's, here in this image, you can see, for example, I can see who's meeting in the meeting rooms. When you go into a meeting room, it works exactly like Zoom, for example. It's just a video conference. But then when people are out on vacation, they go into the vacation room. When people are for lunch, they go here into this lunch. So it gives you a lot more context and it's a lot faster. If I want to talk to someone, we just go into a room and we connect to the call. Or I can just click on their avatar and I call them immediately and we connect to the call. No, I don't need to send them a link so that they connect, etc., etc. So again, it's obviously this is not like the full metaverse, but I think we like to think of it as a simplified metaverse. And I think for events, okay, this one here is an example of an event we did, and you can see it was 24 startups related to the future of work, and each one had like their own booth. And when you go into those booths, it connects like if it was like when you connect to a video call, same thing. But what makes those events different is that it gives users a lot more control in terms of they can choose who they talk to and when they talk to them. So with Zoom or whatever Google Meet, with all the other video conference tools, you're kind of limited to whatever they offer in terms of if they put you into breakout rooms, great, you go into the breakout rooms. If they decide that we're all going to be in the same room like we are now, then that's what happens. But here you have a lot more control. So the user can see, oh, this company has no one there, let's go talk to them. Or, oh, this company is full of users in there, I know there's not going to be no way I'm going to be able to speak to them, like I'll go there later. So it's just a lot more inclusive in that sense. And then lastly, education has been a big focus now because it gives the students a different and gamified and more interactive way of learning. And I think at the end of the day, that's a big part of learning is being, into the class that you're learning. And so it helps a lot with that. And yeah, that's where we're heading. So I have to change it here. Wait, sorry. Okay, so our goal with Nubi, what is our goal? We want to make a city. Currently, it's called nubi.city, and it's still very, very young. But we want to make a community of users from all around the world, where you have your workspaces, both public and private, where you go to work. You have event spaces, both also public and private, where you can have different people come to them, and they all show up in the city. We're making now like a cafeteria where you go in and it's automatically connects you to calls with other people, one-to-one for like X amount of minutes, and you get to talk to different people. Different people. You want to have an arcade room where it's going to be like a bunch of games. People go in with their avatars and they can talk, blah, blah, and then they connect to the game. And yeah, overall, our goal is to create this remote community of people where you can really be yourself. You can do whatever you want. It's completely up to the user, but where they feel connected and they feel part of something bigger. So that's where we're heading. Okay, awesome. So that's the presentation itself. Let me go into Nubi and I'll show you guys. Right now, the issue is there's no one here. So, it's not as impressive as it usually be, but let's see. So you see, I'm this little avatar here. My name is Alvaro and I'm technically in New York because of the time difference. And so let's click. I'm going to go into the room. I'm going to go into the office. So this office is a combination of 2D and 3D. Everything here is done in HTML. So it's very light because we did everything initially in Unity, which is game architecture to develop games anyway. And the issue was it was very, very aesthetically pleasing. Like it was all 3D. The characters were very, very cool. But for everyday use, it was not doable because it was just not efficient at all. It would basically go in and your computer would start breathing like crazy. Would consume all your computer power. So again, it didn't make any sense. So this is me. Usually this area is full of people. For example, these two guys, I know they're on vacation because I click on their avatar. Well, first of all, they're in the vacation room. You click on them and you see, okay, I'm coming back this day. Okay, great, thank you. And then when I go, imagine I have to go out for lunch. I click here and then I have a bunch of options. So let's say I'm eating. My avatar goes, it changes my emoji and I go into the kitchen. And again, there's no one here now, but during the day, this is full of around 50 to 60 users, avatars. Every avatar obviously there's a person behind them, and we're all doing our own thing. So imagine I wanted to go into a meeting room. Okay, we have all these rooms are meeting rooms. We go in and we connect, and again, like I said, it really works just like boom, hello, and you have the same functionalities and the chat option as well. Okay, let's leave. So it's that Zoom experience, but with a community behind. And I want to go into the city so you guys can see what we're talking about. This is like all the different spaces that I can be part of. Let's exit the city. Okay. Let's see. It's slowly getting there. So I mean, obviously, I know this is not the metaverse, and we actually did this before. That whole thing kind of it was a new fashion, the idea of the concept of metaverse and so on. But I like to think of it as it having, remember that graph, the combination of features that you need to have the metaverse. Several of those features are connected here. So this is the city. Okay, this is version 1.0. I mean, the idea that it's all going to be dynamic, so all this will be moving, and you have cars around the city and whatnot. But this is like a first version of it. And this is my office. And here you see all the different options of spaces that I'm currently part of. And so the idea that I was talking about before was having everyone that wants to have a public space, so spaces where any other user can come into. They will show up here, and you simply click on any of them, and you go into any of them. So I'm going to go into an event space just so you guys can see it. So yeah, that is kind of the idea behind it. Also, I didn't even think about the questions. I think that's at the end, I think. So we still have a little bit of time. Let's see. Come on, buddy. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, we're here. We made it. Sorry, I have so many tabs open right now that it's completely. So let's go. Okay. So this would be an event space. Obviously, you can see it's fully different in terms of how the layout of the spaces, but the functionalities are the same. So if you go into any of these rooms, okay, let me zoom in a little bit. You know, each one of these is like a different company. You go in, you walk there. Like my avatar is walking here. Boop, 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 boop. When he gets in, I connect to the call. Same thing as before, same functionality, but obviously different layout. So it fits with the event space. And here it's really cool. Look, in fact, I have a few videos around here. Let me see. Look, see, so you guys can see this in person. Okay. Look. Let's skip some of it. Okay. Yeah, you can see it way better. Okay. You see everyone that's like in the different booths and they're all walking around and moving around. That's kind of the idea. And that's kind of the idea with the metaverse. It's you're going to be able to tap, and when you go into the room, you connect to the call like I showed you, see? So Antonio is going to connect. Where's Antonio? There we go. So Antonio is going to come into this room and you see how connects to the call. So he's walking. Okay, great, connect. And then he connects, and then everyone who's in here, so Katie, Alex, I think a few other people, yeah. So all these people connect to the call. And so it's, again, with the idea of the metaverse, creating that community and so on, which is what we're trying to do in the city. And then within that, allowing people to communicate, allowing people to have their own avatar that is unique to them, and that allows others to understand who they are. And then, you know, being able to interact within one another. Okay. And then lastly, and this is a cool functionality. It's the metaverse. Yeah, this is, for example, with a lot more people in the room. But anyway, I'll stop boring you. I think one last thing I want to show you was this, because it's, I guess, going back to lessons I've learned in life. I think being able to replicate to you know, put out numbers and show what's actually happening and reach conclusions based on that analysis is key. And so we developed a dashboard with all the information of our users, and you know, it helps you a lot in time of making decisions. Of course, I know, I'm sure all of you know it, but I think at least for me it was really it really changed my perspective, because you can really find the issues just by looking at the data. It's like very, very simple, and it shows you things that you never thought were not working, or that were work, or the other way around, things that you thought were definitely not working but are actually working, you know? So it opens up, and it's facts. So if it's like, there's no way to cheat that. So it's the best way to make decisions. It's not biased, because all of us are a little bit biased. So it gives you like all the for like who has entered the space, what they've done after they entered, you know, so you can understand like, oh, for example, 30% entered and left. We don't want that. Obviously, we need to fix that, because that means they're not interacting with the platform. Okay, great, we can fix it. Or this is like a funnel. How many people who started entered the space? All right, by space I mean like the office that I showed you now. How many of them entered the actual office? So from 468 that entered, 403 actually finished the onboarding and came into the space, which means our onboarding is pretty good, 86%. But I mean, we have to fix it, because 13% of people are dropping off before they even come into the space. So you need to look into it. But again, it's just looking at the data and understanding what's going on. And I think that's helped at least me a lot. Yeah, and that's it. I'm done. I'm so sorry if I was the most boring person in the universe. But thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And if there's any questions, I would love to answer them. Okay, let me stop you.
Thank you so much, Alvaro, for a wonderful session.